As I mentioned previously, we need to first of all switch to the environment that we're working on, which is machine learning, Python 2019. So we're going to activate that to get started. Now the next thing is that I'm going to make use of JupyterLab for the purpose of this tutorial. So let's get started by clicking to launch. Give it a few minutes and it will actually switch to that screen for you. So let me just go back to my desktop, machine learning, and then under codes. Okay, so let's just close that off. I don't need that. Close without saying. Yep. Alright, so this is a clean slate. Normally this is what you will see unless this may be blank if you don't actually have any codes whatsoever or any files. So on this side of the screen, the launcher, you can launch either a notebook in Python 3 or console in Python 3 and a few other things as well. So in our case, what we want to do is actually select the hello world file. Okay, this is a notebook file. So let's double click on that. Okay, and this is the purpose of this exercise really is to just get you comfortable with how Jupyter Notebook actually works. What we have here is that the first is actually a cell, which is also called markdown cell. There's a few types of cells here. There is the code cell, markdown, and raw. In this case, we want it markdown because it gives us the rich formatted text. The hash here basically means that this is header 1, double hash means header 2. So the font gets smaller as you go to header 2, header 3, and then this is just a normal text. But as you can see here, as I pressed Shift return or just run the code cell using this, what you have here is that the details of the in the code cell get run and you get this beautiful rich text format. Now I don't want to actually have all of these codes. I wanted to actually start with a blank slate. So what I can do is come to kernel. I can either restart kernel and restart clear all output, or alternatively I can actually select this clear all outputs, and all the outputs goes away. This is just really a very simple illustration of the actual notebook itself. What I'm going to do here is print the word text hello world. You can see the syntax is that the word print, and then you have an open bracket, close bracket, and then using the apostrophe as to encompass whatever that's within those apostrophe to actually be those the text that's rendered onto the console. So let's run that, and what you have is the hello world example. So I can actually come here, copy and paste across, and what I will do here now is that I'm going to change a little bit. Instead of using single quote, I can use double quote, and just delete the single quote. Take a moment and have a think about it and ask yourself, what do you think will actually show? What would actually be illustrated? What would the outcome be different this time around? So let's run that. If you've guessed that they're exactly the same, you are absolutely correct. In Python, there are two ways to do the notation, either single quote or double quote, and both will actually render the output the same way. The other illustration I want to show you is that you can actually make use of Python, okay, as a calculator, okay, using Python as a calculator. All right, so the typical 1 plus 1, you get the answer 2. I would just want to show you something else here. Is the 1 plus 1, okay, and then 2 plus 2. Have a simple guess what could possibly be the output. Do you think that it will show 2 and 4? Well, this is where I want to do this to actually show you the output so that you can actually experiment with it, and from this exercise you learn how to interact with Python so that you can actually receive the output that you expect. So if I run this, strangely, interestingly, only 2 plus 2 is the outcome of 2 plus 2 is shown. 1 plus 1 is not shown. And I'm going to show you an example after I do the print part on how to actually print both of these examples out. So printing it out shows you the output of 1 plus 1. So let me add a cell. To add a cell, you can actually use plus to add a cell or press the letter A. So let me just copy this across and repeat that again. Control C, Control V. Control C is to copy, Control V to paste. Now this is exactly the same as this, with the exception of the spacing. Alright, so now this is exactly the same. So if we run this, you'll notice that both the actual calculation or the computation output comes out. Alright, so that kind of like illustrates how you can make use of Python as a calculator. Coming back here, well, I've got a print text here onto the console, so let me just rename this. Print text to the console. Okay, so that's one way to do it. The other one is using Python. So that just makes the font looks a little bit nicer. I use tree hash so that these two are consistent. Right, I have this extra cell now. What do? I can actually use this clipper or scissors to delete that cell. Now, what I've shown you so far is not very useful because basically all that I've done is that I tell Python to print hello world to the console and then print the actual computation onto the screen. And quite often this is fairly useless. It's not, you can't do much with it. Where the power of programming becomes really handy is to actually start storing the actual variable itself. So in this example here, we're storing 5 to the variable name or variable called var. And when we run this, there's no output, but if we want to see what kind of value is being stored into the variable var, we can run this and you can see the output is 5. Again, this is to illustrate what we had before. It only shows you the output, the latest computation. To see both, you can actually run these. Okay, you have to do print. And the other thing is that when you actually select these cells, you have the code. All right, and just another characteristics of Jupyter Notebook is that you notice that there are 2 solid blue bar here. That means that we have selected these cells. The top upper bar is the code. The second bar is actually the output console. If I find that there are 2, I want to actually minimize the output, I can actually click this blue bar to minimize that. Okay, to unpack it, I can actually click that again to see the full outcome of the actual output or console output. This is quite a neat way to actually clean up your console. Okay, the other thing is that I want to show you is that when you select this is a code cell. When you select this is actually a markdown, and this looks distinctively like a formula, mathematical formula. So if I double click, go in, you can see that you can actually write formula in the markdown state, and we'll render it really nicely. As you can see, the x is equal to 1/7. And this is quite a nice way for you to actually, well, especially when you're actually trying to illustrate some concepts. So there are a lot more functionality in it. For now, this is really what I want to illustrate to you. And the last computation I want to show you is that how do you do power? This is 4 to the power of 5. Probably a bit difficult to know, and I think probably 2 to the power of 3 is probably more useful. You're more likely to know the answer to that than 4 to the power of 5. So let's do 2 to the power of 3. The answer we know is 8. Let's run this, and sure enough, that is indeed the answer that we have in mind. But let's just check our understanding again. 2 to the power of 2, what you get should be 4, and sure enough, that is the answer that you get. Right, this is really a very quick rundown and illustration of the Python, the Jupyter Notebook, interface, how to work with it, and the fact that it comes in different formats. Each code has the flexibility to be a code cell, to be a markdown cell, and also a raw cell. All that I've illustrated to you so far is code and markdown. And I've shown you that you can actually, when it is a code, you can use it as a calculator, perform computation, print screen,